So welcome. My name is Andrew Collins Anderson. I work for the Oregon Community Food Systems Network, and I am the project manager here for the Farm and Rancher Disaster Resilience Grant Program, which we are going to be talking about today. Brittany, can you see the screen share? Is that working?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. The Oregon Community Food Systems Network is a network of over 60 organizations across the state of Oregon who work in food systems. We do everything from food access work and Veggie RX programs, food hubs, to working with service providers across the state, Extension, Friends of Family Farmers, these types of organizations to work collaboratively to improve services for producers, small and historically underserved producers across the state. And in part of that work is this work to provide these disaster resilience grants. Today, we also have Brittany Deming, who's with Friends of Family Farmers, and Surabhi, who are both working with OCFSN to administer these grants and are the ones who are looking at the emails from you all at grants@ocfsn.org when you have questions about these grants. But I'm going to go into detail on all of that in a moment. We are going to be accepting questions. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as we go, and we'll get to them at the end. And folks can unmute and ask some questions at the end once we've gone through the presentation. I asked folks to stay on mute through the presentation. We'll just get through that, and then we'll have some time for questions. And just want to give a big thanks to everyone who's been involved in this program. Lots of organizations. I mentioned Friends of Family Farmers, OSU Extension, Oregon Climate and Agricultural Network, and the state legislature all have been very active and supportive of this program and getting these grants to producers. So let's get started. Basically, want to start off just for everyone who's interested in applying and want to find more information, you can get these materials about the grant at ocfsn.org/disaster resilience grant. All the materials for the grant are there. Details about the rubric, application questions, eligibility criteria, all these things are there. But we'll go into those in some detail today. If you are looking to apply in Spanish, we have a Spanish webpage with all those same materials translated and an application form in Spanish. So the purpose of these grants, this grant is for farms to improve their on-farm disaster resilience through implementing projects and plans. And we'll go into that in more detail. This grant is for specific projects or planning that will improve your farm's disaster resilience. This is not funding for anything outside of that, just for the daily operations of your farm. It's for things that will projects that you're looking to improve your resilience to disasters. And I'll go into some project categories and some ideas around what you could be applying for. We've been getting lots of applications already, and we've got folks applying for all sorts of different things. But the purpose is for improving your on-farm disaster resilience. So some background around the program. The Oregon Community Food Systems Network was awarded state general fund dollars in around August 2023, $2.65 million over 2 years for this grant program. This funding is building off of the successful Farmer and Rancher Disaster Relief Program from 2022, where OCFSN granted farmers who had losses from natural disasters in 2021. They were able to apply for this grant. And that was a kind of a break off of the Oregon Disaster Assistance Program. That was a very successful program, got grants out to 108 farmers across the state to recover some losses from those impacts. And we went to the state and said, hey, why don't we do some things that help farmers be more resilient to these disasters instead of paying them for losses? Let's try to mitigate some of those losses. And the state thought that was a great idea and provided these grants. It's managed by the Oregon Community Food Systems Network. And then we have Friends of Family Farmers contracted to support and administer the grant. We have many other contractors who are doing support and translation. We have a 11-member grant review committee. We have outreach support for folks across the state, and we had a farm and rancher advisory committee, all contracted to support this grant. We have a list of potential resilience strategies in the materials on the website. And I'll go into those a little bit more details, but we have an extensive list of strategies that we pulled from reports and experts from OSU Extension, of things that ranging from improving irrigation, shading and cooling, soil health management work, purchasing equipment. We've probably thought of many of the things that folks are needing to improve their farms' resilience. There are two funding pools. There's a small grants and a large grants pools. The small grants are a little bit more accessible. The application process is a little shorter. And then the large grants have a few more questions, and it's a little bit more detail on your projects. The purpose for those two pools, one is to get the small grants pool is to get as much money to as many farms as possible. But then also we've been hearing very closely that are very detailed from our farm advisory committee and others, that these smaller grants maybe don't have as big of an impact on farms. So we wanted to make sure that there was some larger pools of money to make some serious resilience impacts on farms. And again, all the materials are translated into Spanish. The goals of the program. The goals are to create an accessible grant program. So, we hear regularly how onerous these grant programs are oftentimes, especially federal grant programs for farmers. So we heard that loud and clear, tried to make this application process as simple and as easy as possible while still fulfilling our fiscal and administrative duties to the state with this state funding. We are prioritizing and giving prioritization points to historically underserved farmers, and only small farms are eligible for this grant program. Amounts of income or amounts of goods sold under $350,000. So this is specifically for those farmers who are often been left out of other support networks. We also have some prioritization points for farmers who are in counties that have been most impacted by drought. That is for that designation comes from drought declarations or governor drought declarations, and we have a link to that in the application form, so you can see if you're in a county that has had that in the 2022 or 2023. Prioritization points also go to veteran farmers. We've been doing direct outreach with our outreach team to historically underserved farmers across the state, and we have a very active team who are reviewing and following up with all the applications that are submitted, making sure that you all are submitting the most successful applications possible. We ask questions, offer you a chance to amend applications if you think you could apply. You can provide some more detail in your budgets or in your narrative. And we're reviewing that and asking questions back. And then we also have our grants@ocfsn.org email address. And I'll share that at the end of the slideshow here, that you can ask questions before you apply, and we have a team there ready to answer your questions. We're also doing some robust reporting and testimonial gathering to then report back to the state to show how successful this program is and how needed it is, so we can continue to provide this funding into the future to farmers. So let's get into some details about the process. The timeline for this grant, we have two rounds. We have a round one, which is in 2024, and round two, which will be in 2025. This could change, but the second round could change. The 2025, we might move the dates around a little bit, but we are in the middle of the round one application process. The applications opened on January 1st. We're providing 2 months for folks to prepare their applications and apply. So the applications close on March 1st. We are now over halfway through the application period. Throughout the month of April, we will be taking all the completed applications and having the grant review committee grade them against the rubric, and then making a decision by the end of April. We will then begin the award acceptance process and announcements to those who have been awarded by the beginning of April 1st, and then through the month of March is when the grant review committee is reviewing, and then April 1st we make the announcement, and we're trying to commit to get you all the funds if you're awarded by the end of April 26th. We really wanted to try to get funds to farmers as soon as possible this season. And April was really the soonest we could turn this around with all the recruitment of the committee and creating the program and all that stuff. We didn't get funds in our bank account until like November, December of 2023. So we're doing a really quick turnaround for this, and we realize that the season's already underway in April, and folks might not have time to implement their projects to the fullest this summer. That's why we're allowing a year for implementation of the projects, and reporting's not due, and projects don't need to be completed until the winter of 2024-2025. Similar timeline right now for round 2, but that could change depending on what we learn from this first open round. So here's some details around eligibility and how the process will be undergo, and just details on the funding. Applicants are not able to apply for both small and large grants. You have to choose to apply for one or the other when you apply in 2024. So a small or a large grant. If you receive a grant in 2024, you cannot reapply in 2025, but if you are not awarded in 2024, if you submit and are not awarded, you get to try again in 2025. Applicants may be awarded partial funding, so we're expecting to be having requests over the amount of money we have available, and we ask producers to prioritize. If you're asking for multiple projects, say you're asking for an irrigation project and a composting project, and you want to prioritize one or the other, if we have to make a hard decision about only partially funding your ask, we would do that with your top priority project and then go from there. So we may be awarding partial funding. We're trying not to do that, but it's an option. There's no requirement for matching funds for this grant. You get awarded upfront payments, so you don't have to have the capital and then submit receipts. You would get the money ahead of time and then be able to implement your project, and then there's reporting required at the back end. We're asking folks to provide a narrative of what was completed and pictures of the project. The funds must be used to directly support the purpose to improve small farm disaster resilience. And that's going to be reviewed by the review committee from the applications. If an applicant asks for something that is outside of that scope, they would not get awarded. Also, we want folks to be thinking creatively about this funding and seeing if there are cost share or matching opportunities using this funding for any kind of federal conservation or other funding. And we encourage you to contact your local NRCS or FSA office to see about that. Great. Okay, so to qualify, we have 2 clear qualifications, and then we also have some prioritization that I mentioned earlier. Basically, you must be actively farming and derive some farm income from your operation to be eligible, and you must be under our designation for a small farm. You must be a small producer in Oregon to be eligible. So that is, we are identifying that number as $350,000 in farm sales income using line 2 of your Schedule F. And we've had lots of questions about folks if they do not have a Schedule F, are they eligible to apply? We encourage you to email the grants@ocfsn.org if you have any questions about that, and likely the answer will be you need a Schedule F. The reason we are requiring this is to be able to verify that you are both a small farm and that you're deriving farm income. If things may change, we're getting a lot of questions on that. We may have to review that for round 2, but currently we are sticking with that requirement. But please, if you have any concerns or questions, email us at grants@ocfsn.org and we can work with you on your specific circumstance. The grading rubric provides some prioritization points for BIPOC farmers, Black, Indigenous persons of color, farmers, drought-impacted veteran farmers, and then also farmers who identify as part of environmental justice communities. This includes rural, low income, several other indications, and we have a definition of that in the grant materials. So prioritization points for those producers. We do require a budget for your project and encourage folks to go into as much detail as possible in your budget. The more detail you are able to provide, the more that the grant review committee members are able to understand your project and grade you favorably on the budget. Reviewing the budget is one of the components of the review process. So please take your time in reviewing, in being clear in your budget and providing as much detail as you can about what your expenses will be. Reporting requirements, as I mentioned, will require a year from the award date of a final report, and then also you will also have the photos that were required. And then also with the resilience strategy impact, that's a question in the application process about the impact that your resilience strategy will have on your farm. Let's make sure we could have a conversation about that question. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Hui, but we can get to that at the end of the application if you could share. Or not the end of the presentation. Okay, so here's the review rubric. It's on our website. You can go into detail to see the points that you have there. Resilience strategy project categories. So here are the categories, and we have a whole list on the website about potential strategies. But they go from irrigation and water efficiency, shading and cooling, soil health management, ecosystem management, crop management, equipment purchase, rental, or refurbishment, and on-farm planning, monitoring, and research. And we have many options or ideas under each of those categories for things to implement. And then also, you don't have to apply for a project under any of these lists or categories. You can submit a project that would improve your on-farm disaster resilience that we have not thought of, and all we ask of you is to describe how that would benefit your farm. We also took a lot of time in the development of this project. We had a farmer advisory committee, folks who produce vegetable, seed, and livestock across the state from regions all over the state, reviewed our application or reviewed the grant program in its early stages and made lots of comments. And we made a bunch of changes from those comments from that farmer advisory committee, which is really, really helpful. So I think we have a more solid program because of that. We also have experts from OSU Small Farms Program and Oregon Climate Ag Network closely involved in this process. And we're going to go look at the website. I'm going to walk through the website with you all just to show you so you can see what we have there. And here's the contact. If you have any questions, concerns about the program, issues with the application, anything at all, any specific instances that you're having trouble with or have questions about, grants@ocfsn.org. And so let's go over to this. And I'm going to share again. Can folks see that website?
Yep, you're good.
So here's the website, ocfsn.org/ what was it? I don't want to say the wrong thing. Disaster Resilience Grant. And you can also just go to ocfsn.org and go to grants in the top right-hand corner. And we have some overview, details on the session today, and then details on the grant categories. Here's a link to those ideas. The main thing I want all to see is the grant materials. We have all the materials here. We have the program overview document. If you're trying to share details about this grant program with fellow farmers, folks in your network, you can download this PDF and share this. This is just like a 1 page or 2 pages of details about the program that similar to what I just provided at the presentation. This is I think the most important document for folks to take some time with before applying. This is the guidelines and requests for proposals document. This outlines all the details and specifics around eligible expenses, timeline, review rubric, application form, and budget template. We have a template that folks can get that's in an XLS spreadsheet that folks can use. So this grant guidelines document has lots of information. We provide the questions as well to the application beforehand, so you can put those into a Word document and answer all the questions and then just copy and paste into the online form instead of being beholden to the issues around a form potentially, in the internet, something happening with the form. You can save the form online and come back to it later, but we recommend that you have it in your own document and just copy and paste. It's the most efficient way and can prevent the least amount of issues if you do it that way. Here's the link to the budget template and also a document of frequently asked questions. So if you have any questions, you can go to this document and they might be answered there. We also have a recording of a previous webinar that we did on this, similar to what we're doing today, available here on the website. And then to apply, here's our button to apply. It sends you to our application form. And you can apply here. The form goes through several questions about your farm and then into the application questions. If you need an application in Spanish, right here in the top right-hand corner, you have the English and Spanish options to translate. Details on funding and details on the 2 grant categories. Just what I shared today right here on the website. Details on the timeline. So March 1st, get your applications in. And then we have the scoring rubric and the email. And that's what we've got today. And we're going to open it up for questions. So Brittany's going to help me here. Folks, please raise your hands. And we will do a stack or we'll go in that order of folks who have their hands raised if they have any questions. And maybe
Andrew,
we can start with the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you start by clarifying some of the nonprofit questions? Like, is this only for farmers or can nonprofits also apply?
Yeah, I think it's not an easy or. There's nonprofit farms, an easy either or answer to that. There are nonprofit farms that produce. So we do prioritize farms that produce food for community. And I think that I'd like to have a conversation around how you document sales with your nonprofit and your nonprofit farm and sales of produce or how that works, and we can work with you specifically on that issue. But yeah, I'm not going to say in either or because that's not how it works in reality.
All right. I don't see anybody's hand raised at this moment. Do we have any questions? You can just unmute if you have any questions.
I have a quick question. Hey, Brittany, this is Kate Cassad.
Go ahead.
I had a question. I hope the reception's okay. I think I saw something in the notes about the funds being able to apply to other like cash match conservation projects for other grants. And I had a question about, have you guys seen or do you think that applying for this to help cover REAP solar installation would qualify as greater disaster resilience?
That's a good question. We've definitely had lots of questions about solar. I think what we came as a team for solar is that it needs to be really clear how the solar installation improves your food production, the farming aspect of your operation. And I think that if you can clearly describe the partnership or the match that this would be provided, I think that would improve the reviewers' understanding of the match and the increased disaster resilience. So I'd say yes, but we need more details.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Hoyi, if that's how can you say how your name, and you can go ahead and just unmute, and I know you have something to say.
Yeah, so we have an interesting I guess farming model. So we address economic equity with small farmers. So our nonprofit houses all the farmers that do not have like, capital to raise to have their own farm and their own equipment, and they're not even have status to even qualify for any of those things. So they're all under our umbrella. But the things that they grow are culturally relevant foods for their own community, and those are not very popular items. So, a lot of farmers grow standard in order to make money, but to be able to offset because we sell everything at a very low cost that is affordable to their own communities, and because it's low quantity, there's just a lot to it that the nonprofit has to cover that. So the equipment and the resources, the nonprofit provides all of that, the land, the leases, so they have absolutely no overhead. Does it make sense? So like when I apply, it would be for the nonprofit, but we're not making money. Whatever they make is to each and individual farmers that are under our umbrella.
Yeah, I think that is very in line with what, some of the priorities of this grant program. I think we'll have to work with you specifically on your example through some one-on-one phone call or emailing back and forth to make sure that we are able to be consistent with how we are, implementing the eligibility requirements that we've provided. And if we aren't able to come to something that works, we have the second round of applications in 2025 where we may be making amendments to the process, and we can definitely work with you on that. So please, in order to document your questions with our team, please email grants@ocfsn.org with some specifics, and we'll make sure to set up a time to talk with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Jane?
Can I answer a couple in the chat here real quick? Shannon, so if you have an NRCS project, I think we would need to see the full project and then outline what NRCS components are covered, and then what you're asking for is match here in a budget. Yeah, maybe we have a different, you use an NRCS template for that budget. You can share what you have with us in an email to grants@ocfsn.org, and we would then be able to work with you on some specifics around what we need to be able to review your match. So yeah, again, email us for that specific issue or circumstance, and we'll work with you on how do we get that budget put together. No, not a minimum amount, Keith. It's for small farms, but we do need to see some documentation of income. Django.
Yeah, I have a question just regarding the difference, or how you guys are thinking about the difference between the small and the large levels. And maybe this is a one-on-one question, but basically we're working on, our application has to do with a project that could be scaled, essentially. Like it'll involve a planting and integrated livestock kind of planning, and we could do that, at a below 10,000 level, and at above we have the capacity for those. And I think there's been some discussion among our farm on just oh, we don't want to apply for this money and not get it because we applied for the smaller pool of the kind of larger grant, basically. That would be disappointing, when we'd be happy to if we get 10,000 and then add 5,000 of our own capital or whatever to that to do the same result. And so I'm curious if you have a recommendation there. I know there's partial funding available, but yeah, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, so we have been receiving applications, and I can share that the more folks are applying, we have more funding allocated to large grants or funding requested to large grants than we do for small grants currently. So I can't tell you what you need for your projects, but I can say that there are been the percentage of requests so far are more for large than for small. And so the small, there is a larger percentage left over from those requests than large currently. So basically what I'm saying is that the large are likely to be more competitive.
All right, Chi has a question about, will it qualify for a cargo van for transporting produce?
We have a review committee that is using our rubrics and our setup of the program to make we as program managers aren't making any decisions, but it needs to be really clearly indicated why that improves your disaster resilience. And when looking at other projects, I'm a cargo van. It is not a clear line of what improves disaster resilience and what does not. Everything does, right? At some level, to make sure your business is operational. You need an operational business to be disaster resilient. But a cargo van, in my assessment, the review committee might think that is a little bit outside of the purpose. But I encourage folks to apply for what they need and make a really clear argument of why, and then the review committee is the final decision making in their, as an unbiased body as we could put together for that process. Sorry, I can't be more clear on that, but I think that's the way that it's going to have to go.
I did also want to mention that it's February 6th. You still have the rest of the month to apply. We have people standing by right now, holding your hand to answer each individual questions. As the time gets closer, we're going to have to transition from turning the information to turn it over to the grant review committee. So we will not have as much time to go detailed with one-on-one. So if you have kind of an outlier questions and you're worried that your project might need some help, please do it sooner than later.
Josh, do you mind coming on mute and clarifying your question? I'm not quite sure what you mean by criteria.
I was just looking, hi, Andrew. I was just looking at the criteria that's online, that's posted online, that has up to 27 or 20 or 30 some points available. And I was just wondering if that's kind of the complete kind of grading framework that you're using.
It is, yeah, and I can share how we're going to set that up with the grant review committee. Basically, we have 11 members of the review committee ready to go, and we will provide each one of your applications will have at least 2 members of the review committee grading against that rubric. So they have a spreadsheet that they have columns for each one of those rows in that grading rubric, that then they would apply points and then basically total those up and then average between the number of so each review committee member will have a score for each applicant, and then we average, when multiple review committee members review each application, we'll average those scores to try to get as unbiased as possible score. That is our effort to be, as I said, unbiased as possible. Each review committee member is going to have their own. It's impossible to remove any sort of bias around that, but that's the process that we have to focus. Yes, so the review rubric is all that they're using to grade it, and then averaging out so we get at least it's not just one person's decision around. And then we also are meeting with the full review committee several times at the end of March to then talk about maybe some conflicting or applications that might have some conflict around it, or some disparity in grading, or any like edge issues that we'll go through and discuss as a full committee. And then our goal, and this is a decision-making process, but our goal is to come out of that with a final award decision that has been decided as consensus. So the full committee has agreed to that final award decision for all the applications.
Makes sense. Thank you. I think
Yep.
I have kind of the same sort of question and dynamic as the woman earlier talking about a nonprofit that's supporting others. So I'm trying to figure out, but that's something I could email as well as you had suggested to
Yes, please do.
then writing.
So, Lucy, we've got 1.6 million being distributed in 2024, and then a little less in 2020, about 1 million in 2025. So it's like a 2/3 and then a third of funding. And the reason we're doing more in the front end is in order to have a strong report back to the legislature, which we need to be talking to them in September for the long session in early 2025. So we wanted to have a solid program put together and show some successful awards early in the process. But then also want to make sure there's funding for folks who weren't able to apply this quick of a turnaround. Nope. Yeah, Brian, it's just the rubric. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I think I see that's the end of questions. This is your last chance, but also we have grants@ocfsn.org to get answers to your specific issues with your application. I encourage you to get them in as soon as possible. Yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to be here today and learn a little bit more, and wish you the best of luck in your application process and the work that you're doing feeding our communities. I really appreciate all that you all do, and appreciate you taking the time.